Stacey, that's fine. I was going to say Stinson for some reason, but I'm sorry. I'm sure they're good. So we have Joshua and Stacey here to show us why WordPress is awesome. I believe helped take us through basically a from scratch setup, right?
Oh yeah.
Stick around. At the end, we usually do a raffle giveaway for a PHP Storm license and a SymphonyCast license if you're into doing some more digital training with PHP. I guess take it away, Josh.
All right. So, oops.
Josh? Josh, love
I'm
Is Josh around the... I'm just talking to somebody.
all right. So today, I did a fair bit of preparation for today. I do have an outline. What I suspect is a lot of the stuff that I may or may not have prepared might be something that you do or do not want. So what we're going to find is probably the first half hour is going to be setting the stage. And from there, please, if you have questions, odds are whatever I was going to prepare last night was maybe not going to be right on the nose for whatever you find interesting. So please feel free to ask. I'll start by saying WordPress has been around since 2003. It sucked then. It sucked a lot in 2005. Lately, it doesn't suck. So, what you'll find in a lot of projects like this is they'll change their names and height to be different things. WordPress has never been ashamed to be WordPress. I admire that about it. And I'm also, it's open source software. We're going to touch on that a little bit more. I have some pictures of my daughter up here. The one with her and me walking, it's a shadow, it's so cute. That one's really special to me. She was walking after she had her 4th brain surgery before age 2. And part of the reason why I'm including this is because my working with open source technology to build businesses helped Amy be able to have the health insurance she needed at the time to be able to get those 4 brain surgeries and get incredible access to healthcare. I think people feeding their families is really cool, and I think open source technology is a really cool way of improving that. So that's going to be pretty much the beginning. I have a little joke about a personal thing at the end, but that's mostly just why I'm so personally invested in this and why it's really, thank you. So, this is the overview. Originally I had 10 slides, we have 17 now. But I'm going to tell you some background about myself. I'm going to talk about how technical and non-technical people work together. Just for shits and giggles, raise your hand if you're a technical person. All right, raise your hand if you're a non-technical person. All right, you all can work together. All right, we'll talk about that. Whichever one you're in, it's fine. Game theory works really well. I'll go over some WordPress basics, what you'll need. We'll talk about hosting, talk about some cool use cases. So if you're a non-technical person thinking about WordPress, what that could look like. And if you are a technical person and you say, well, if I read through the documentation, is it even worth doing? Absolutely. I'll talk about the Trailblazer initiative, which I think is pretty cool. And then I'll just open up the questions and we can go kind of anywhere. My expertise lies lately, I've done about 50 to 70 WordPress websites in the last 12 months. My expertise is mostly just in general technology. WordPress is a nice tool for tying a lot of things in together, but it's really, there's that. I've done startup coaching, and of course, whatever else. So, over 20 years of experience in tech. I've been self-employed for over 10 years. I had experience as a startup coach. I bootstrapped a company from scratch to $750K in revenue. I have a tattoo of it here because I was pretty proud of it. I thought it was worth getting a tattoo over. I love helping people grow their businesses and ideas, and I also like really large, complicated problems, such as democratizing access to information, technology, and opportunity. It might sound like DEI, it's not. But my company I've been working building for the last 2 years with my partner in Connecticut is Big TV, and the mission of that company is literally to democratize access to information, technology, and opportunity. So, first, what is open source? Open source powers virtually all of the internet. Netflix uses so much open source that they end up actually, if you read through your user agreement, which I don't recommend, but I got a kick out of it because it actually had the GPU license in there. It's like, they're like, here's the open source licensing. Linux is all open source. The operating systems that run web servers and apps and all sorts of things, it's all open source. Open source allows developers to work together because You know, Ush can make something, I can make something, you can make something, we can plug it in together, boom, we can go so much faster. It's very collaborative. And it can help you start a business as soon as today. So, I think I talked about this a little bit later. So why should you use open source technologies? Well, you can launch stuff incredibly fast. For any nerds in the room, you can verify what I'm saying is true. Last night, I bought newlost.vegas, a URL. If any of you would like to take out your phones, that's fine. I would encourage you to go ahead and do it right now if you want to follow along with this little side story. I am the mayor of newlost.vegas. And it's a social media network. I registered it, and in roughly an hour after it was registered, it was a fully functional social media site where you can create groups, make accounts, message each other, upload pictures, upload videos, all sorts of exciting things. Even has a marketplace.
What's the URL?
Newlost, N-E-W-L-A-S, .vegas, V-E-G-A-S. It's $20. I was like, this would be pretty cool to shop. Then I could be the mayor of a website. No one's going to care about that. That's fine. So, anyway, welcome to fabulous newlost.vegas. If you joined us on your phone.
That is a really big joint.
Yeah. It's the campground. I recently moved to Las Vegas. I love it here. I'd like to be a Las Vegas ambassador. Here's what I'm trying. But what I did last night, there are technical parts of it, but a lot of stuff you can build very quickly. Between my partner and I, we could probably do 20 to 50 projects like that a week. But there's a lot of non-technical stuff too that we can't keep up with. So that's where a lot of it's, non-technical lives matter too, I guess. So why is WordPress the perfect place to stay? Well, it's come a long ways. It's coming up on its 20-year anniversary. A lot's happened in the world and in tech. I graduated from high school in 2002, and WordPress, again, it's stood by its name. Zillow is a multi-billion-dollar company, I believe. They run on WordPress. WhiteHouse.gov runs on WordPress. If you go look up websites that run on WordPress, you'll find a lot of pretty big ones. And part of that is because there's just a lot of good support for it, a lot of collaboration, a lot of developers work together to make good security solutions, make good plugins, lots of different things. So what you can get for learning WordPress, what you get out of it versus how much time you have to spend learning it, it's a really good ratio. The other thing is if you do have something that's already built, such as, any of the non-technical people here, you could probably manage newlost.vegas. If I just give you the backend login and said, here, check this out, and just Google a little bit, it's not a very heavy lifting. So it's nice to not be stuck having to have expensive technical developers on a project if you're trying to keep it, especially if you're trying to run a startup on a low budget. It's nice to not need the ongoing expense of very technical people. So why technical people should work with non-technical people? There's a story I heard from an old Mormon bishop when I saw the YouTube video of the story. But the guy said he wrote the story. I heard the story from this old guy before I heard it from the person with the video on the YouTube there. But basically, there's a story of a city, and there are two people that are contracted to provide water to the city. So they both took buckets for whatever reasons. This is the setup. This is how they're doing it. One of them decided it was very time-consuming and laborious to carry buckets of water to the village, and they got paid based off the amount of water that they brought. So, only reasonable thing to do was to build a pipeline. So, they built a water pipeline, didn't have to carry the buckets of water, sent all of the water to the city, and the other guy wasn't able to compete. So, I bring this up because, in a lot of ways, a software as a service website or some technical piece of technology could be used to generate pretty significant profits. But unless there's somebody there managing it, keeping an eye on it, it's really not going to do a whole lot. So, I'd like to think technical and non-technical people, the reality is there's a lot they can offer each other, right? I'd love to be able to have a non-technical group. We could just hand off our projects once they're built to and just keep building more. And then also it's nice to not have to, spend years learning all this technology just to use it. Most projects really do, if you think about any company, right? Most companies, even tech companies, they have a diversity of people who are both technical, non-technical. And the other thing is, I will tell you this, if you're non-technical, but you can speak a little bit of nerd, you can get a long ways, just understanding. I don't know everything, and I know that more every week. And one of the things that I've gotten really good at is talking to individuals who have different skill sets that synergize very well with mine. So there's one good friend of mine. He partakes of the Mexican nose candy quite a bit. He's a little unreliable, but he's super talented, and he's down for the cause. And I love that. Him and I get along great. And there's stuff I do, like for example with databases. For about the last 10 years, I've actively managed a database of about 250 million users with about 300 to 500 data points per user and some updates and stuff. It's very heavy database lifting. He doesn't do that. But guess what? He could do things we couldn't. So we were able to work on a project together, and that was awesome. So just being able to sort of explain conceptually things, hey, I'd like it to look like this, and being able to communicate technical things, even if you don't know the programming languages, just explaining the way it works, that in of itself becomes a skill very, very quickly. So let's talk WordPress basics. Raise your hand if you've ever made a WordPress website. All right. Raise your hand if you've ever put up a website that was not WordPress. All right.
Squarespace.
Squarespace. All right. So I'm going to pick on Squarespace because it's fun. WordPress replaces in a lot of ways the need for a Squarespace or a Wix in the sense that you're paying for a design builder. There's a lot of really really good free tools, and a lot of even better tools if you pay a couple of bucks, where you can build a really polished website. But for example, you can do that on $5 a month hosting instead of whatever. Like I pick on Wix the most because they charge for transactions and stuff. So they start baking in, as you add functionality, you're going to pay more. With a WordPress plugin, if you're adding that and you're self-hosting it, there's no extra fees for it. So you're not losing a little cut here and a little cut there. One of the biggest mistakes with low-code, no-code type scenarios is you're paying for API fee after API fee, and it's great, you're tucking some things in together, but wouldn't it be even cooler if you had it on your $5 a month HostGator hosting? So I actively manage servers myself. I set them up. I've been doing them. I used to, if I set this up differently, I could have showed you some pictures of some old servers and cabinets and nights I spent swearing at inanimate technology because I was the dumb one. But it's easier than ever to do that. There's lots of hosting options, and a lot of the hosting computers are very powerful now. So to make a WordPress site, you need a domain, you need hosting. I'd recommend a cPanel license, and patience is always a virtue. You may also want a small budget if you're a non-technical or technical person and you're thinking about offering a new business. You want to offer a marketplace or do a hotel or apartment listings or any other kind of business, really. There's plugins for all sorts of different things. The new Lost.Vegas is largely based off of a plugin called Pizza. I have a license to that. I actually have a bunch of them. They're kind of expensive. But to be able to build a social media site in 1 hour, okay, guess what? Maybe that's not so bad. So WordPress can really be as complicated as you want it to be. You can tie it into very sophisticated things. Zillow, OF.gov, obviously very different use cases than maybe a pizza shop or a bakery or dry cleaners or fill in the blank, anything else you want to make with it. Here we go. Last night I built new Lost.Vegas. It took me less than an hour. How long would it take you? So, raise your hand if you think you could do that in 1 hour. Okay, interesting. All right, raise your hand if you think you could do it in less than 5 hours. Okay, well, I have faith in you. You're all wrong about that. You can absolutely do it in less than 5 hours. So, essentially what you do is you take the WordPress, so you start with your domain, right? So you go to GoDaddy or Namecheap or wherever you register your domain, and you point that at your hosting. So I have servers set up. You could use HostGator, you could use whoever, pick whatever host you have. There's a one-click installer. You don't need to know how to do this command line. It's not better that way. You can make more mistakes. So starting about a year or two ago, cPanel started including something called WordPress Toolkit, which is a very easy way to install. You literally say, here's the domain, install it, boom. It doesn't just create everything for you. It also lets you manage it. So you can add plugins directly from there. If you forget your passwords, you can reset it. And you can set it to do automatic updates. One of the things that you're going to want to think about with WordPress is security. On the plus side, there's lots and lots of good developers and working on security updates. But there's also so much incentive to know how to hack a WordPress site. What this most often looks like is an old plugin has an exploit. So maybe you have the default theme from WordPress in 2008 for some reason still on there. That could be a way it's compromised. So by limiting the amount of, and I'll get into this a little bit more, but limiting the amount of sort of themes and plugins that you're using, only keeping the ones that you like. It's very easy, for example, think about it like you're looking at a car and you push a button and it's blue. And then you push a button and it's green. And you're figuring out what color it is. With WordPress, it's going to keep files for everything that you change it to look like. So each one of those becomes a potential liability. And it's very easy once you find the one you like to go, this is the one, and leave all of your trash out. Why? It's just on there. It's got plenty of space. You can do that. Well, then 6 weeks later, somebody's running a crypto miner on your server. You get a message from your host that you're being terminated for abusing the services. So one of the easy ways to deal with being compromised is also just to do backups. So anytime you do a major update, just download a copy of it, keep it locally, and then you're going to be able to, if you do get nuked, you can just go right back to one-click install, load your update, and then you're back. It can take like 10 minutes. This is largely, a lot of WordPress is largely just you're looking at it through a GUI, a graphical user interface. So it's a lot like managing a Facebook account, to be honest. One of the things that's happened over the last 20 years with people being very active on social media is a lot of what you're doing in managing a WordPress site on the back end is just clicking on this menu, typing in the setting, hitting enter. You're not having to really organize all of this thought and program, right? When I was in high school, I'd start with a text editor. I'd start off, if I wanted to link to something, open alligator, a space, href equals post, blah, blah, blah. Some of you have probably used the text editor the same way. Fun thing about WordPress is if you are used to that environment, you can also go in and edit the files on a very technical level very easily as well. So it's accessible to both very experienced individuals that say, I want to go in and change this. You're never going to get that with WordPress Workspace. And then you're able to heavily customize it. And that's sort of going back to what James was speaking about in the earlier presentation, if anyone's here. When you give decentralized power for people to improve on technology, you get a lot of really cool advancement really quick. So I've been talking for a while. Does anybody have any questions?
So you said big companies are adopting this? WordPress, that is supposed to be...
Does that offend you?
Amateurs.
I know! That's very prejudiced.
Adopting this.
Are you not technologically?
They think WordPress is underestimated. WordPress, so if you think from a business perspective, everything comes down to money, profitability. The amount of money it takes to have one experienced WordPress developer maintain a WordPress site where all your marketing people have an easy interface to do everything they need, it costs a fraction of the price.
I wish the camera was
from a business perspective, there are very valid use cases where even if you have a very...
Because they're dumbasses. They don't have a program, but they have to get technical skills.
So we got some things here. That's all right. That's all right.
Yeah, so I was going to say, the reason I come to technology is I started programming this year, and it's been exciting. And learning the command line, learning how to do things from scratch has been awesome. When I started looking on platforms like Upwork or Fiverr for freelance work, a lot of people are asking for WordPress or Squarespace. That's because that's what people are using because they don't necessarily want or they don't have the budget for a tech team. They just want you to build it so that they can manage it regularly. So I think that's why I was excited for today.
Yeah, I mean, hold on for just a moment here. So I want to hit on this point on the head, and I'm glad you're having that reaction at some level because it is a theme. People say, "Oh, WordPress, fine, whatever."
And it's out there.
It's out there. But Zillow literally is an industry leader in real estate, redefined the way people look at houses. That's WordPress. I believe that entirely negates any criticism of it. Because when the market spoke, you can use it to make money. So if that's what you're here about, we're Tech Alley, we're talking about startups. So this is and I'll tell you, because of men like this, I'm going to shut down. Because of men like this, so if you go to newloss.vegas, it doesn't have the WordPress logo as the favicon, because there's people like him. And the logo, and I obscure it a little bit, it doesn't say powered by WordPress, because of people like him. But here's the other, okay, we'll pick on him some more a little later. But there's sort of two sides of it. What's that?
Keep it
stupid.
You're just having an ontological shock. I
As
get it.
stupid as possible.
Well, all right. So moving on. Thank you. WordPress has two sort of sides to it. There's the front end. So if you think about that, like you go to the website. So if I'm logged into nuance.vegas and I hit edit, I can go and change the words on it and different things like that. Then there's the back end. That's where you're adding different plugins and functionality. So on the back end, it is a lot more technical. But if you're thinking about, I'm making a bakery, for example. Once you have this default, and in the second half of this, I can show you all of this. I don't know how useful it is if you don't know what you're looking at. So that's why this first half I'm sort of okay. So once you're logged in there, you click add page. Make your page. Awesome, you're done. So you want to add a post. So one of the neat things about, so a lot of folks are using social media, obviously. You can link a WordPress site to take your social media posts and push it directly to all of your social media accounts. So if you want to put an update, let's say you're running a special. I have this great party I'm throwing, come get a deal. If I post that to a WordPress site that's configured properly, that'll post that update to my Facebook, to my Pinterest, to my Telegram, to my subreddit, to my whatever else. So companies, and you can schedule that. So like, Hootsuite, for example, will let you schedule posts. It lets you do a number of other things. But if you really just care about scheduling posts, you can do that all on WordPress. And if you're doing this on $5 hosting with HostGator, you're not paying anything extra for it. It's all included. You're just able to basically make the computer do more for you because you're leveraging open source technology. Other people made something to share with you. It's pretty cool. Okay. The dashboard works like a home screen on a computer, lets you access everything easily. You get into the settings. If you ever get lost, just go to the dashboard and you can start all over again. And up at the top left, if you're logged in, you can basically click on this thing, you'll see it. It'll toggle back and forth between the front end and the back end, and that helps you avoid getting lost. Because once you're lost, it's hell. I'll just tell you that. How hard is it to maintain it? Well, for the most part, we'll pick on nuance.vegas. Most of the hard work's already done on it. There's some fine-tuning, I'm sure there's some user settings, and okay, whatever. But for the most part, that is fully operational and usable as is. So the practical thing to do, once you have something you like, is make a backup of it. And it might feel good to leave a copy on the server. But what if that server crashes? Then you're not in a great spot. So I like to have backups at two separate physical locations. And you can, using a plugin called Updraft, you can actually set it up to do updates automatically. So for example, I have on some of the websites that I manage, it automatically sends an update to my Google Drive. Will Google servers go down or have some issue? Maybe. But what's the likelihood that both the server would crash and Google would have issues at the same time? Now, if I really belt suspenders, I'd have local copies on my machine, and if I actually make a server, I have lots of redundant hard drives on it. So that way, even if one of the drives within the array fails, I still have backups. The biggest thing is if you have a clean backup and then you're compromised, you can just wipe everything. Now, that doesn't work for all products. If, for example, it's a bakery, and they've not made any updates, okay, that's fine. But what if you have a social media site and there are a lot of updates, right? People posted things, pictures. You can't just roll back to an old version. People might be upset. So that's where, depending on the project, you might want to set your update intervals. But this is maybe a little bit of a counterpoint to what the gentleman over there might think. I just sort of say, I'm probably going to get compromised. Make sure I don't have anything anywhere where it could be damaged, right? Don't store sensitive information in places that are going to be less than secure. And then, if somebody raids it and says, give me Bitcoin, or I'm going to send compromising pictures to the people in your address book. I say, as flattering as that is, and as disappointing as it might be for them, I'll just clear the drive and start from scratch. I have my backup. Have fun with that. There's 10 minutes of my life I'll never get back. So, there are providers that can offer very inexpensive hosting. They come with limitations. So if you're doing a very computationally heavy project, I'll give you an example. I have a website. It's called streamriff.com. You can get a free crypto wallet there, and it doesn't take any personal information. Guess what? The software on that is much more complicated than a bakery website that has pictures of some cakes and some times and a contact form. They're just going to have different needs. So if you are building an MVP, for example, you want to do your app, okay, great, and you've got your $5 hosting, that's probably all you need to really just get started with the theories, see if you can make it work, and also find the right plugins. The plugin marketplace is huge. There's thousands, tens of thousands, possibly even hundreds of thousands of plugins. It's highly likely if you have a business idea or something you want to build, there's 3 to 10 different ways you could go about trying it. So this is what's also really cool about, I'll pick on Jack, he's not here to defend himself. I was teaching him how to use WordPress, how to build with it, and he wanted to save things. He's like, oh, I worked really hard on this. And what he realizes now is that's just not how it works. You usually end up deleting a lot of the stuff that you do and rebuild, and you just get used to build, kill, rebuild, build, kill, rebuild. I'm remorseless about this now, but for him it was very upsetting, especially his early work, right? He tried hard on this. But it also helps if you install a lot of plugins, test some different things. You might find some of them have conflicts with each other. So if you have more than one plugin at a time, they don't all check with each other, and that's where it starts getting more tricky. So if you can put all the plugins that you want in, and everything works, that's fantastic. If it doesn't work, that's when you have a decision to make. That's where being technical might actually be super helpful, because you might have to address some of those things. Or you might have to go to Upwork and maybe say, hey, I have this plugin, and they're not working. Can you fix that? So now instead of hiring somebody to build a whole thing from scratch for $50,000, you're paying a very highly experienced developer that's done this 9 gajillion times, $39. And now it works with these 2 plugins, or whatever it is. As far as your hosting goes, you can start with something very basic, but you can also spend. The last server I bought was $15,000.
So what do you think of Linode instead of AWS? Is that reasonable?
Oh, I forgot I took a swing at AWS. Yeah, I did. So I like bare metal servers. So you're going to spend $50 to $150 a month for a server, probably another $50, $60 a month on a cPanel license, and then you'll have access to basically every tool that an administrator would have. So you could be your own hosting company at that point. Then when they say, oh, your server needs to have whatever the hell activated, then you can go, aha! Oh wait, how do I do that? But then you can go look at the documentation and enable that. But if you're on like shared hosting, they have security policies in place, so there might be a reason why they wouldn't allow a server to execute a certain function. So I would say if you're, and then the other thing is this concept of clustering. So if you have, for example, Facebook has more than one server, and right, so all of those plug in together and grow things. The reality is, for most of your use cases, a single server is probably going to be more than enough. I mean, you can pretty easily handle, let's say, 10 to 50,000 simultaneous users on most, call it middle of the road software, because you're not really doing a whole lot. It's just a lot of transactions. And the hardware now is so far and away better than it's ever been in the past. So Linode, I would say, is probably a step in the right direction away from Amazon Web Services. But I'll explain why I dumped on them here. They have their own sort of technologies that they work with. So for example, I have a lot of experience with database work. So they have their database services. And it is very difficult and very time consuming to get large databases to perform well. So at the time they had their RDS, relational database services, I'm assuming that's still what it is, but they charge per transaction. So in order for me to make my business work, I couldn't have a transaction fee because there were going to be a lot of searches, and I didn't want to potentially lose money on a customer because my Amazon Web Services bill on a $50 customer would be $500 for that customer. So I created an entire ecosystem that was self-hosted, and so that way I was able to contain the costs. If you're baked into Amazon Web Services, as you scale your stuff with their price model and there's sort of everything there, and you're stuck, so WordPress is a viable alternative to starting off there. There might be great reasons to go there for certain use cases in certain industries sometimes. But you can also very easily, and it's a lot more affordable to tell a developer, here, I made this WordPress version of this thing, make something that looks like this, then I have an idea, I wrote it on a napkin, here, do this. A lot of the problem with hiring developers is how confusing it is for them to just understand a lot of miscommunication, which is why I say learning to speak nerd is probably the best use of learning technical things, because, for example, with the database stuff, I know conceptually how to talk to a MySQL developer. I've done very little MySQL work myself. Going back to the hosting, if you have the cPanel license, cPanel has a lot of MySQL tools in it, so if you know what you're looking for, you have access to it. And so, like, what really open source and stuff like this does is give you the ability to roll up your sleeves and dig in on what you're looking for. And it might take you, for example, with making new loss.vegas, it took me under an hour. I suspect Well, I'll qualify even more. At the end of last year, I taught a class that took 6 weeks. By the end of the class, every person in the class could have built that in probably about 2 hours. And they were able to make an e-commerce website that took both crypto or credit cards. Very right. 6 weeks, we met twice a week. I could probably do that in a weekend. And so I mention this because at this point in sort of growth, the message that a lot of nerds might not want out is the tech's actually not that hard right now. It's all of these other sides of things. How do you get people engaged? How do you make it interesting? Are you finding real problems? But yes, so that's my 2 cents on Amazon Web Services and why I would use them begrudgingly. Okay, plugins are like an app store for your website. Did anyone was anyone here for last time when they talked about GitHub Copilot? Okay. So, anybody familiar with GitHub Copilot?
Yes.
All right. What do you like? What is it in 2 sentences? What does it do and why do you like it?
Fancy autocomplete if I don't know my SQL basic commands.
Right. So you type in your comments. You're like, hey, I'm going to make a user login, and it goes through all of its libraries and says, oh, here's some other code people use for libraries. Yeah, that's cool. Check this out. WordPress plugins all work with each other more or less, or pretty close, and you can install entire functionality on it. For example, if you wanted to have an HR management tool, you wanted to manage all of your employees, track their hours, track your customers, track your whatever, there's plugins for that. It takes 90 seconds to install. And it's giving you functionality on the same user, right? So WordPress does user management by default natively. Once you get it, it'll add users. So now what can those users do? And the plugins help answer that question. So you can build really sophisticated software, which again, then it's like, well, then what are you doing with it? Are you marketing it? Are you selling it? What are you doing from it? And then you can also, here's the other thing, using that same concept, you can have plugins developed. I have a site right now, it makes a fair bit of money every week. And it's working on a plugin I paid $3,000 to make. At this point, I've made so many multiples over that, it's pretty solid. That's my friend that likes the Mexican nose candy. He's solid. I wish he would do more work for me, but, you know, we all have our priorities. Bless his heart, he was on vacation, and I had an emergency, and he did work for me on emergency. He took a break from all of that to help me. So, all right, cool dude. So, plugins add functionality. Is WordPress secure? Great question. We've talked about that a little bit. If you keep it up to date, periodically there are updates. If you update it, log in once a month, once every few weeks, at least once a quarter. Hit the update button, things will usually stay fine. I would always make your backups before you do any updates. Do the updates, and if it went good, then make a backup then. Don't use obvious passwords, and like, for example, with cPanel can create WordPress installs. I would not use the same password on everything at all levels of that. So my root level access for the server is a lot more of a secure password than for the WordPress login itself. In fact, I usually just use the WordPress toolkit to log in automatically to the WordPress site, so I'm not even inputting that password usually. Zillow and myhouse.gov use it, so that's right. As far as support goes, so let's say you dive into this, you go into the WordPress pool, you say, I'm inspired by Josh's presentation on WordPress. I do not believe it is lame, or if it's lame, it is lame for me. There's a lot of great resources. You can go on YouTube, there's a lot of stuff explained a lot of different ways. One of the things that's challenging with tech is a lot of times the people that understand it don't understand how to explain it to people who don't understand it. And the internet has really helped break that down because there's videos. When someone's like, oh, I get it. And here's the other thing. Why does that work? Because no amount of me sharing information and trying to be helpful will ever balance out the equation of how much information help I've received. So I'm always happy to give out information and help, and that's largely what the open source community is. That's why when a lot of companies try to centralize tech and take control of it, a lot of the people that work together to make really cool stuff, they're like, you're going to do what? No, that's just not. No. But there's lots of good, so there's good stuff on Google, good stuff on YouTube. On Upwork, you can get a freelancer for pretty cheap. If you can be very clear with what you want, the price is usually pretty good. Yep, like I said, with a WordPress site, you can also manage customer information, track inventory, process orders, all sorts of business workflows, generate leads, your sales funnels. You could install, one of the plugins you can install is a discussion forum. So a lot of these these support groups that they have for products, if you're doing the like letting people have a discussion, all of that is, there's 3 or 4 different ones of those you can do. And also, oh, he's gone. You can turn any WordPress site into a mobile app. That's
PWA.
What's that?
Is it a progressive web app?
No, so you can get the APK, so you can do iOS and Android. So basically what you do is you install a plugin on the site, and then they compile it. So I did this for 2 of my social media networks. And then so I went to Firebase, and they're like, here, put in the key, and you do this, and boom, then you have your app. Why? Because the robots already know what a WordPress app is. They already know what a mobile app is. So they go to the WordPress app and say, oh, you want it like this? Cool. So that's a really great application of open source technology because it's something a lot of people want to do, and it's relatively straightforward. We already know how to compile social media apps and mobile apps, and all of the stuff in WordPress is already organized in a particular way. You have your database, you have your graphics, you have your things. The most annoying thing about it, honestly, is submitting all the different artwork for the different sizes of devices. So they're like, now submitted this resolution, now submitted that resolution, and so you've got to provide them with a lot of art for the various app marketplaces. But you don't need to be a mobile app developer to do WordPress. WordPress can make a mobile app. Anyway, that's cool. So does anybody know, well, so before I get this, any questions so far? Raise your hand if you think this is being helpful and insightful.
I'm going to turn off my Squarespace tonight.
Oh, okay, all right. I'm just going to assume anybody that didn't raise that was a lot of hands raised. I'll take that as a win. So, raise your hand if you know what a trailblazer is.
It's a pioneer term from early American history.
Excellent. And what did it describe?
Describe people who were going westward.
Exactly. So, ahead of those camps, right, so there were a lot of families moving ahead. So it was very common for a group of men to run ahead and hatchet down the paths and look for the berries and see where the food is and make it easier for everybody behind them. So one group could go ahead and move much more slowly, but then that would make everything easier for those behind them. They were called trailblazers. They were literally like burning the trail, right? So there's a story I learned. Has anybody ever heard the story about stone soup? Okay, I love this one. So, it's 2 guys, they're hungry. All they got is a stone, fire, a pot, and some water. People are coming by. Oh, well, we're making stone soup. They go, oh, can I have something? Oh, sure, but it sure would be better. You wouldn't happen to have a carrot, would you? Like, oh, I'll go home, I'll go get a carrot. And so the next person comes up, oh, what you making? Oh, yeah, we've got this stone soup. It's got a carrot in it, got a potato. Anyway, as everybody's coming along, they all put together some ingredients, and eventually there's actually a soup, which started off as just a stone and water. So I hugely believe in collaboration. And so what I talked to my business partner about doing, his name's Jack, is this Trailblazer initiative. So if anybody here has a product you would like built, we'll be the Trailblazers. We'll go build the thing. As I showed off, it takes me so horrifically long to make these things. It would truly be a burden to help you, but I'm happy to do it just the same. So if you have an idea for that, I'll give you the email address now. If anybody would like, his name is Jack. It's Jack at big as in large, T as in Tom, B as in boy, bigtb.com. If you want to email Jack at bigtb.com and say, I have a startup, will you help me build it? Jack will say yes. I already asked him. And he's pretty good at it now. And if you ask him something complicated, he'll ask me questions. So I've got a little skin in the game here too.
Is this the Mexican roast candy?
No. This is a nice, responsible young man who graduated from college and decided to work with me. He didn't know very much, but he could make the nuanced stuff Vegas pretty quick. He probably could do it in an hour. It took me a half hour. It would probably take him an hour. And he might ask me a question. But he can move here. He's probably done 20 to 30 WordPress sites in the last 12 months. And he really understands sort of taking a look at the economics of it. How do you make a business that makes money? Building something on Amazon Web Services. So he had a project he built on Amazon Web Services that was costing him kind of a fortune in hosting, truth be told. And he had to close it because he couldn't keep up with the hosting. Well, with WordPress, $5 a month. Everybody got $5 a month. That's $60 a year. So he had this farmer's market. Now, if it's costing you $5,000 a year run harder to make money than if it's costing you $60 a year. And so him being able to work with technologies that he understood, he can build better versions of what he had built before and pay less for it. This is progress. You know, I've got a little girl that I care an awful lot about. You know, she's disabled. You're not going to be surprised. 4 brain surgeries really cause some damage. I'd like to live in a world where little girls are safe. And if everybody has full bellies, that's a little bit better. So if I can help people build their businesses, take care of the communities, do their whatever, right? I've got my time. And the more I've been involved in teaching and sharing and building, my skills have exponentially improved. My ability to connect and do things, my reach has really gotten a lot better. So it seems to be working for me. So until proven otherwise, yes. So one last time, it's jack@bigtv.com, or if you just go to bigtv.com and submit it, then maybe. But yes, so we're excited. I love being in Vegas. It's a great community here. I think it's going to be an absolutely fabulous home for Big TV. So happy to do that. So let me see. Oh yes. We're almost done with the first part. So as it relates to WordPress, so we'll take a little 5-minute break if anybody would like it. Questions for the audience. You know, would you like to see a dashboard? Would you like to see me build something from scratch? Would you like me to talk to you about some projects I built? Would you like to join me at newlost.vegas to collaborate on new ideas and projects? So, if you have any questions, let's hear them. I want to make sure that the next chunk here is what you guys are interested in.
So, can we see a dashboard? Is that
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just kind of want to see what it looks like.
Yeah, we'll even look at the one at newlost.vegas.
What is New Lost Vegas for?
It is my attempt to get everybody here on a social media site that's for Vegas people.
So we can talk.
So you can go join and message each other, and don't be foul. Beyond Vegas standards, think Fremont. Well, you saw what was.
I mean, there's Naked City. Naked City. What are you saying?
All I'm saying is,
I wouldn't go down there.
yeah. So I mean, I think we've got a nice community here that collaborates, and so I'd be happy to basically host anybody there, have the discussions, you know, do the networking. There's a lot of folks that are technical and non-technical that should be collaborating, and you know, outside of us being here at Tech Alley and other meetups, I don't know how often that happens. So I thought that would be a cool place to do that. Cool. So that's an hour of my life I'll never get back.
I have another question about WordPress. So, for me, I'm a very junior developer in JavaScript, that kind of front-end stuff. So for someone like me, does having that knowledge help at all when you're learning WordPress? Because I have no familiarity.
Yeah, so I learned Quick Basic and Visual Basic 6 in 1999. A lot of the concepts, like part of the challenge with programming is you're dealing with abstract concepts, right? I have this process and I have this thing, and when I have this thing happens, I want it to run this process, based off that does that. At the end of the day, you're typing in a keyboard, hitting enter, and the computer's doing something. And so if you have that understanding, any technical understanding at all, I think makes WordPress a lot easier to work with. But I'm sure there are exceptions, I don't think you need a technical background to use WordPress.
Anybody can build a WordPress website. Will it be good?
It depends on how much patience they have.
Right. I mean, if it's somebody.
Patience is the equalizer.
So just to speak to that, so I went to school for software engineering, and I started an internship at a local web development agency, thinking that I was going to do some crazy stuff. They were just building websites on WordPress, and I found that a bunch of, pretty much all the agencies, they don't actually know how to code, and that's when I actually started my business. And I can tell you probably 95% of the websites I've built are WordPress. And the most I do is a little CSS, maybe JavaScript every now and then, just to get like a little.
Right, there's a little something right here. Come here. Yeah, every now and again I have to edit I'll show you in the dashboard where you can edit stuff manually. My partner, he's not very good at that part, but it gives you a warning. It says, you're about to be in a position where you can really fuck this up. Do you understand you could fuck this up? And you're like, ugh, but it's got good bumpers like that. Excellent. All right. So what I'll do, I'm going to disconnect this from the projector, just get logged into the dashboard so I can show you that. I also am happy to answer any questions. So this this point, we're done with part one, basically. So we've been talking about WordPress. I also have done a lot of startup coaching. I think these two cars are pretty cool. I owned them both once. This is a Z28 Camaro from 1985 at T-top. It was solid, it was good at donuts. That's a 2015 Aston Martin V12 Vantage S, and I also drove that very irresponsibly. I had gone years without a speeding ticket. Fun fact, and this is true, I once received a speeding ticket from Officer Goodspeed in the Fairfax County.
Oh my God.
Goodspeed. Okay, I thought that one. I'm like, where's the camera? So anyway, so any questions about startups in general or whatever? If not, I'll just work on getting into this here. All right, let's get into who wants to do this.
When you work with startups, what do you find you end up doing the most?
In the 90s,
Helping
used to
them.
throw a bunch of like
A lot of stuff is more obvious if
possibly a
you
little
look at it from.
scammy, but it's not good anymore. But I showed them like 2 years ago WordPress and then one of the page builders.
A lot of
I had to
times,
make these little like I don't know, there's a plugin to like little chat, and I would go to my phone and try to tell the guy ID and stuff. He was so mad. He's like Phil, you ruined the whole internet for me. He's like, I can't unsee this now. He goes to like every website. He's like, oh, yep, I could build this in like 12 minutes.
so I'm gonna have to tether to my phone here, so that'll have to be in a moment here. But as far as your question again was something I see a lot with startups.
Something that's a need that you end up helping with the market.
Okay, yeah. So a lot of times people. So I'm gonna try to answer this question here. I don't mean to be rude. No, that's fine. So a lot of times they don't think through things. Like, and it's not like they're not thinking through it. It's, so you have an idea, you have some problem you see in the world. Now, is there anyone in the world that really feels that same way about it? And are they going to spend money with it? And then that last inch is, and how are you going to find them? Right? Because it's not really immediately obvious. I'll give you probably the best example. I was doing a trade show, and someone was what they sold was Rush passport services. So to be in the group for this, you would need a passport, and I would have to mark it to you and find you at the time you needed it. And that's so expensive and hard. By contrast, a business I did very well with, I talked to a lot of insurance agents on an online forum. A lot of them asked questions like, how do I do marketing? And I sold marketing lists. That was awesome. So I knew where to find them, and I knew where to find them cheap, and I already had credibility. So a lot of times you might see a great idea. I need to remember what server it was on.
You just don't know where they're at, your customer.
Yeah, and how to get at them economically, right? Because it's not really just enough that you know where they are. Are you gonna have to spend $10 a click to get them and you're only making $40? When it came to paid search, for example, I could do fine. By the way, this is what else is it gonna be? All right, no features. So this is WHM. So if you think about it like there are things. Let's say you went down to the server store, you bought yourself a server, you put it in a cabinet, you plugged it into the internet, you have no operating system computer. Cool. Now you can do this with really just about any computer. So then you go ahead and you put an operating system on it, then you install cPanel or WHM. So it's the same company, but there's the WHM, which is the management level of it, and the cPanel is a level deeper. So if you go to HostGator, for example, take a $5 hosting, they'll give you the cPanel access, they won't give you the WHM access. This is where you get to be the system administrator, you can set the own rules, you're doing the whatever else. So, what I'm going to do now is get into the cPanel. And honestly, if you're not into hardware and you're not into a lot of this other stuff, I wouldn't necessarily recommend learning all of that. like it's fine, but usually you can just find a nerd and go for it. That's going to be better for you. So this is WordPress Toolkit. So there's my new Las Vegas. I'm going to log in. So there's some password on this. I created it when I made the account. I'm sure it involves some punctuation. I don't know shit about what it is. See, WordPress Toolkit just logged me in. So that lets you use a really secure password without having to use it. So this is the dashboard. And up the top left there, right, it says New Las Vegas. Visit site. This is sort of a toggle, so this is the back end. And then here's the front end. Hello, Las Vegas programmers. Oh, it's right here. Approximately 30 minutes ago, I found the domain. Anyway, I blogged about this when I did it. So as you go through here, you see like there's an edit here. So like this is a post. I can hit edit on that. I can do what I want with it. If I do hit edit, what it will do is it will bring me to the back end editor for the posts. So you can set different permission levels for administrators. So this is the like block builder or whatever. Again, I've done this for a while. The names change a lot, but there's always just something that makes things easier. WordPress is really cool about letting you, if you want to embed a video. It used to be a lot harder, but basically, so the way so there's a block here, block here, block here. You hit the plus sign there. It's like, hey, you want to put a picture in? Let's go browse all. It'll give you all these different options. And a lot of plugins will give you different things you can embed. So like there's statistical software, so I could install a stats plugin, and then it could present the stats to people and say, oh, we have this many visitors, we have this many posts, we have this many whatever. And you don't have to code all this shit. That's the thing. Very non-technical people go, no, you know what? I want to put a video in. Cool. So then you take video, drag it over, or you just hit the button, and then it says, all right, you're going to upload the video. Is it already here? What are we doing? That's it. And then if you added that, hit update, now it's there. So why are developers using this to build? Well, because, you know, to quote my good friend who likes the Mexican products, we spent forever trying to get away from command line. It's very confusing to anybody that's been doing dev work for a while, why people are rushing back into it. Now, we have seen, just sort of taking a step aside for a second, we have seen a real change in the way that specialization is working. So for example, I have, one of my sites I have set up, you can log in using a crypto wallet. I don't need your email address. Crazy amount of privacy involved with that. So if you're able to log in using that, now how do I do that? There's a plugin. We'll go back. See, oh, that's exciting. All right, so this is where you can edit the posts. And you can, all right, move here. Fact. All right. So along the left here, there's all the different things you can do. If you add plugins, you'll see more menus come out. So for example, this is the Gecko. It's the customizer. So plugins are functionality, themes are how it looks. Gecko is the theme for the social media site. The plugin is Peepso. So Peepso does all of the functionality. You can upload the pictures and whatever, but it still wouldn't look good. So they sell them as a bundle, and that makes a lot of sense. But when you're looking at adding plugins, this is a list of all the plugins that are on the site. These are the things that I say keep updated. And it will tell you a bunch of, you can have them active or inactive. If it's deactivated, it's not gonna work. If it's active, that means it's working. So one of the ways if you see a conflict, if you just activated a plugin and it's not working well, deactivate the plugin. Maybe it'll go back to usual. But if you wanted the plugin, now maybe you have a problem. But like, let's say we wanted to add the wallet login on here. We'll click add new. Awesome. Now, so let's say we want to do a Web3 login. I don't know, whatever. Let's see what we got. Ah, look. Web3 crypto login. Install now. Now it's installed. I'm not coding shit. I'm hitting active. I like this. This is how it takes an hour to build cool things. So then, now that I have this installed, there's some customization on it. But again, I'm not doing command line. I'm not having to open up a text editor. I'm not having to go do all these other things. And this is the free version. And most of the time, they have a paid version. that will do even more. So like, for example, we could set this up. Raise your hand if you know what an NFT is. Perfect. If you don't know what an NFT is, it's conceptually, it's like you own this digital thing. You pay $10 and you get a picture of a cat. You could set up so that picture of the cat is what lets you log in. And so if you wanted to build a community around some art, for example, you could release NFTs based off the art. The arts give you access to sort of maybe like the backstage show, right? So you buy the NFT of your favorite band, then they did a special concert, it's only available on their website, and then you have to have it to log in. Well, with about a few hours of patience, even if you don't have a lot of background, you've got everything you need to make that work. That's really cool technology. Now, in my particular situation, I don't have a lot of work with blockchain. I've edited a blockchain contract 3 times, and 2 of those were trying to fix it from when I did it wrong the first time. But there's lots of blockchain developers out there. I've been on Upwork, I've been looking at for $300 to $500. I can find somebody who can do what I want. Do I want to learn blockchain to be worse at it than they already are? Or should I give them the $300? All right, so that's, as far as the appearance goes, I'll take a look at the themes here, and then we'll show you where the editor is. So you can add different themes. You can buy custom built ones. It's very easy to find a premium theme for $20 to $30 that looks very professional. It's harder to configure it. One of the things in 2003, again, WordPress was very, very, very lame. But now, again, they have these, what it will do, the problem is you buy the theme, but it wouldn't populate any content. So you pay for the theme, but it wouldn't look like the theme. So they have these scripts that you can automatically install alongside it, guide you through it, where it puts in the filler content. So you just go in and you change the name and change the photo and do the whatever, but what you're looking at actually looks like what you paid for. So for example, there's a company called Theme Forest. You can buy WordPress themes from there. We use Elementor. We have the pro version of it, and Elementor has a lot of pre-built kits that are very easy to use, and there's even more support. There's another company called Envato, and they have a bunch of free things for Elementor if you have the pro version. So there's a lot of building tools. So a lot of times you're like, I don't know how to do the visuals, I don't know how to make the graphics look good. It's like, that's not what you're doing. You're going to a label bin and you're plugging everything in together. And to make that work, you really just need the domain and the hosting. You install WordPress. Once you have that WordPress installed, I'll show you the toolkit here. This is how hard it is to install. You go, I want to install WordPress. And it goes, where do you want to install it? And then you click install, and then it's installed. So that's pretty cool.
Can you show where you do like customization in the code?
Yes. So there's theme editors to edit the look, and there's plugin editors. So we'll look at the theme file editor. There's going to be heads up. You could really screw stuff up. I understand. I accept your terms. So over there, up to the top right, it will list off the different things that you have installed. And then you select that. Then this is going to look a lot like a text editor, because it's a text editor. There's different theme functions or whatever. Along the right side, it lists all of the different sort of parts of the files that you can edit. So like the theme footer, for example. One of the things I like to do, again, WordPress is classy, but I don't need to tell everybody about it. Right here, we see a line where it says, hey, powered by WordPress. And I'm like, that's fine. Whatever, you got your reasons, I got mine. And now it's not powered by WordPress. But so you have all that access. If you want to tie this into something, if you want to make this super complicated, go for it. This is why it's fine for Zillow. This is why it's fine for high usage. And again, you can turn it into a mobile app. There's plugins. Oh my goodness, check this out. And now there are some of this stuff, it's not as well supported. Last time there was a Zoho guy here. I'm sure the Zoho compilation is more reliable than WordPress, but they're going to charge you a lot more than $5 or whatever the hosting is. Like my company, we sell hosting. Our cheapest plan is $25 a month, and you get cPanel access. But you're able to do so much more if you're actually reaching in and doing the stuff here. The plugins. I was excited about a plugin we were doing.
Mobile app?
Mobile app. Oh my goodness, how did I forget? Thank you. All right. Oh, I'm looking at the installed, not add new. And these are all the error messages. It's angry because, so Peepso integrates with a lot of things. For example, Tutor LMS. So I could do like Udemy courses or something like that on here. But if you don't install the dependency, in this case the Tutor LMS, it will yell at you forever. Every time you do anything, it puts all of this up here. And we're just here trying to do a mobile app integration. And meanwhile, jerks. Okay, mobile app. Now, mobile app plugins are a very new market. Yeah, at my site. 10,000 installs, 4.5 stars. Cool. And it does iOS and Android. Now, there's other sites you can go to, like ThinkForest.net. They have some scripts that you can use to do it that are like $20.
Yes.
What's that?
Yes, the big truck also.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Whatever.
That's good. But there's just the big takeaway from this. Oh yeah. So there's in the first search results, there's four of the first 6 will literally take it and convert it to a mobile app. So the big takeaway from all of this, right? We start off, does WordPress suck? Is it lame? The answer is, to some people, I call them losers. Fine. But we do have, if you want to build something, like WordPress is a perfectly viable way to play with it. It can tie into Java, you can tie into a different bunch of things, and it lets you really, it has a lot of good integration support. So with that, I will close. Thank you. One last question, and please be honest. I give a lot of honest feedback to people. They don't always like it. I can't take it. Please raise your hand if this was a good use of your time. Oh, excellent. All right, thank you. You're wonderful.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks everybody for joining. We do normally raffle off annual license for PHP Store as well as a one-month subscription for SymphonyCast. It's a learning platform. Is anybody interested in any of those prizes? Let's start over here. Oh, now we're gonna have to fist fight.
Just learning stuff, right?
I'm gonna go ahead and stop this.
Good job.